Okay, I've got top of the hour. Welcome everybody to our 19th episode of our 20 for 2020 webinar series. Today we've got a really good one. It's an accreditation success story with one of our customers, Mount Dora, Florida. I've got a guest speaker that I'll introduce to you here momentarily, but he's going to share how his agency was successful on their first attempt for accreditation. In fact, they just got accredited this year, March, at the SIPC Excellence Conference held in Orlando this year. So we'll be getting to that here momentarily. I'd like to again welcome all of you for joining us. And I know you're all busy with taking care of your communities and keeping your crews safe. So we especially appreciate you taking a little time out of your day to join us. So here's our plan. We are going to do a quick introduction, cover our objective, and as you guys know, I like to keep that objective very focused and short, so you'll see that. And if we have anybody who is not an emergency reporting customer, I'll run a little poll question here in just a minute. We will go ahead and do a little quick emergency reporting background, but if we have all customers on board, we're going to get straight to Mount Dora's case study. So with that, I am going to run some poll questions here. So if you've joined me before, you probably know what to expect here. First one is, what type of agency do you work for? So that should be up on your screen. Let me know what you've got, what kind of agency you are. Career, volunteer combo, or federal DoD? We got about half of you voting. Keep it open here. Awesome. Okay, going to close it in 3, 2, 1. And we got a nice mix. A little over half with career, and then a split, 20% a split between volunteer and combo. Excellent, great to know. And that's going to come into play here too, because Mount Dora, some of you might think, oh, you've got to have a giant budget, run thousands and thousands of calls every year to go for accreditation, and that's really just not the case. And Mount Dora is going to be a particularly good example here to show you. One more. Are you a customer, or are you interested in joining emergency reporting? So are you new to us and want to learn a little bit more, or are you already a customer? All right, almost everybody has voted. We're going to close it. 3, 2, 1. Last chance. All right, looks like we got all customers today. So that's good. We can get to the meat and potatoes of today's presentation very quickly. Okay, so I'm very pleased to introduce Rich Loewer. He is a division chief and their accreditation manager for the Mount Dora Fire Department. And there's a little bit about his background there and also about his department, but I'll let him speak a little bit right now, give him a little bit, let him give a little bit about who he is, why he has a passion for what he does. And I can tell you, I was just privileged to talk with him. We first met at FDIC, what was it? I think a couple years ago, right, Rich?
I think 2017, yeah.
Oh, yeah, time flies. So going on 3 years now. And of course, this would be the week we'd all be at FDIC had it not been canceled. So we'll do a little virtual reunion here. But I've really had the pleasure of working with Rich. We've bounced ideas back and forth. I've helped him with the system. And in turn, he's helped me learn a lot more about the accreditation process and how an agency can be successful going forward using emergency reporting. So with that, Rich, just share a little bit about who you are and about your department.
Good morning. Thanks, Tom. So again, my name is Rich Loewer, Division Chief with Mount Dora Fire Department. We're located right in the heart of Central Florida, right outside Orlando. So I'm about a half hour, 35 minutes from Disney. We're despite Orange County and Orlando being the dense tourist population that we have, Lake County, Florida, I think has just a population of a couple 100,000. City of Mount Dora is almost at 15,000 residents, and we're about 10 square miles. So we're pretty small. A lot of that 10 square miles is lakes, hence the name Lake County is where we live. We've got about 43 people, 36 on shift. We run 2 engines and a tower truck, and we run about 5,000 calls a year. Our annual budget's about $3 million. And we got on with emergency reporting about 2017, kind of used it just as its basic features for incident reporting and some basic maintenance modules. Especially the past years, we have we're registered and then an applicant agency with accreditation. We were able to dive and get really granular, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, with a lot of things ranging from the hydrants module to occupancy, pre-fire plans, and it helped us a lot with specifically Category 2. And I know for accreditation Category 2, with your assessment methodologies and your monitoring performance, and then your plan for improving performance, emergency reporting has been really helpful. And not just assessing fire risks and improving upon that, but a lot of the non-emergency service demands, everything from finance and budgeting for apparatus replacement. So it's been an excellent resource for us.
Awesome, Rich. Thank you. And Rich is gracious enough to put his contact information in there. And I can assure you that if you have questions about that process, it's fresh in his mind. And he's able and willing to help just about anybody, and is just great to work with. So thanks for sharing your contact information there, Rich. And when he talks about the Category 2, he's referencing the Center for Public Safety Excellence Fire and Emergency Services Self-Assessment Manual. And the Category 2 is a big one, but there are 10 categories that agencies have to go through as they're plotting through the whole accreditation process. So Rich is going to focus on some of those core items in Category 2 today. So well, thanks for that introduction, Rich, and can't wait to hear more from you in a little bit.
You're welcome.
You guys know me, been with emergency reporting since 2011, used it since 2004. So we'll just go right past this, and I'm always glad to be here with you guys and share my knowledge and share the good product that emergency reporting is to help fire departments around the world. All right, so because we all have customers here, you've joined me before, you've seen this slide, but again, it's a reassurance for those of you that are customers that you've got a good system, you've got a reliable system, you've got a system that's constantly changing. We've just done a lot of releases to help you with reporting COVID-19 responses for both the N for special study, and then also being able to complete ICS form 214, which is a tedious form to fill out, but we've made it a lot less tedious thanks to our development team and their wizardry, and actually doing a first ever in our system, a report that is not like a ER formatted report where it's, got your logo on the top and the footer. This is actually, you're able to take it out in the PDF, finish filling it out, and you essentially have the correct ICS 214 form that you could use for submission for reimbursement. So that's really exciting that we were able to make that change so quickly. We're growing by leaps and bounds. We're well over 7,000 departments now. This gets updated, I think, every 2 to 3 weeks. So I know we're probably pushing 7,200 departments as we speak. And of course, all of the features in our system. All right, so the objective, right? We're going to keep this simple and focused today. How could my department make the accreditation process less painful through better data management? And I could walk you through how our system can help, but I thought it would be best to actually have someone like Rich show you how he's really done it in the past, couple years, getting it prepared for the very stressful board presentation that they have to do when they go up for accreditation. So he'll probably share a little bit about how that went too. But that's what we're going to focus on today. And before I leave this, I've got 2 more poll questions I want to share with you guys. First one is, are you currently accredited? So yes, no, or we're considering it. Oh, good, we got some that are accredited. Nice. Okay, about half of you have voted. If you're multitasking, look up. And we're going to close the poll in 3, 2, 1. Last chance. All right, an interesting mix. So about half of you are accredited. Some of you are not, and then some of you are considering it. So even if you are accredited, we all know that you have to go through the reaccreditation process. So hopefully what Rich shares with you today, for those of you that are already accredited, you'll find beneficial. Okay, now this may be a moot point, but I'm going to do another poll question here. And so what I want you to think about when I launch this poll is, those of you that are accredited, I still want you to answer. And the way you want to answer this is, what was your greatest challenge? So if you're not accredited, what's the greatest barrier keeping you from becoming accredited? And if you are accredited, of these 4, what's the biggest challenge that you face? And again, think going for accreditation also. Cool, all right, votes are coming in. All right, make sure everybody can vote on this one, because this is one I'm particularly interested in, and I think Rich will be too, to see where's your challenges at. Okay, closing the poll in 3, 2, 1. Think it through, click quickly. One of these is going to fit. All right. So, well, that's where we come in for sure. So interesting. I was expecting resources to be much higher because it is a costly process in time, in manpower. Many agencies have a dedicated accreditation manager that's like their full-time job. Now, I don't think Rich will shed a little light. I don't think that was his only responsibility, but I imagine it consumed a good chunk of his time. Thankfully, we don't have any on culture, so that's good. But then we've got, okay, it's not been made a priority, which we have a lot of competing priorities. But then again, down here on the bottom, poor collection, data collection and management, which is always a challenge. And it's all data driven for accreditation. So whatever can be done to make it easier, we want to be there to help. Thank you, everybody, for participating in these poll questions. All right, Rich, I'm going to advance the slides and I'm going to let you do a little talking here and go through the process. The deck here is going to kind of give you an introduction of what Rich is going to go over in his actual emergency reporting account once we go through these slides. So take it away, Rich.
All right, thanks again, Tom. So yeah, again, a little bit of background of us. We started, I think in late 2017, really getting serious with the accreditation process and where it would take us. And we touted it to the peer team. It was in a lot of performance improvement plans for us of being able to utilize the data. And the poll said also is that data collection and management. The other big part of this also is obviously and has been successful for us is strategic planning. When we could take that data that we got, so response times, effective response force, how many using our risk assessment scores, business inspections, all of that stuff that we use for emergency reporting, we were then able to use in the strategic planning process and say, here's where we are, what are our community expectations? Fortunately for us, we live in a community that they want good response times, they want well-trained people, and they want us they want to be saved. When they're calling having a heart attack, they want us to be there within a relatively short period of time. We also, with those high expectations come a lot of the non-emergency demands of our community, especially being older. So we do run those cat in the tree. We'll change smoke detector batteries also. But that's what our community expects of us. So through all of this, we've been able to show them exactly where we are. We've had performance improvement plans, and I know it's not super common, but the stars have aligned. Again, I've been with Mount Dora for about 15 years, and it hasn't always been this way, but the stars have aligned the past couple of years, and I have to thank emergency reporting as part of that and the accreditation process. We currently have 2 stations. We run 2 engines in a tower, like I said. We're replacing 2 of our stations and adding a third currently. They're in the design phase. For all of those, we got a SAFER grant to put the tower truck in service about a year and a half ago. So through all of this, which is data, again, getting back to the poll, that's a big thing. We've been able to use this data to show what we need, how we are or aren't meeting the community's expectations, and our plans for maintaining and improving those services. So it hits category 2, and especially with those accredited agencies, those annual appraisals. So again, a big thing that we were hit hard with by our peer team and got some recommendations out of are now how we're going. It's easy to be accredited, that quote that I'm sure we've all heard a lot of times, but the difficult part is now being reaccredited. So what have you done with those recommendations? How have you improved on those processes? And we're looking forward to that. I'll talk in a little while about the events module. We got hit hard for documentation on a more granular level of our non-emergency services, so hands-only CPR, public education, and stuff like that. So we just started dabbing in the events module a little bit more to be able to document that better. You can go on to the next slide if you'd like, Tom.
Awesome. Thank you, Rich. And one thing I want to mention in celebrating what Mount Dora has done, if you think of the thousands of fire departments, well, hundreds of thousands probably worldwide, but let's focus on Canada, United States, and the DoD. Mount Dora is one of 285 accredited agencies. That's a pretty special group. And 14% of them use emergency reporting, which is kind of cool. And hopefully we'll see that number increase in the months and years ahead. Okay, FESM category 2, Rich.
So category 2. This was a big deal for us in data collection and understanding our risk assessment methodologies and our plan for maintaining and improving performance. So I just am going to start out a little bit. with our fire risk assessment stuff, emergency reporting's been great for the OVAP scores. We have almost 100% of the occupancies in Mount Dora. Again, we're a smaller city, so we were able to do it relatively quickly with the crews. We were able to do pre-fire plans and do OVAP scores on have been on almost 100% of the occupancies in Mount Dora. That's
Let's
a big deal in Category 2 and creating your standards of cover.
let's jump to that. Let's jump to that slide, Rich, while we're
Yeah, go
talking
ahead.
about it. So this is right out of their account. Just a quick screenshot. Rich will get into it a little bit more
Mhm.
momentarily. But one of the things I want to mention, there's something about, I don't know what's in the water around Orange County and Lake County, but so you've got, I want to illustrate what Rich just mentioned. He's got nearly 100% of his occupancies assigned a risk assessment score. His neighbor, Orange County, a 42 station, 10,000 call a month fire department, they've committed their engine companies to go out and perform what they call pre-incident planning, and they collect the risk assessment score, compile it in our Vision product, and they, with I don't know how many thousands of buildings that they have, 28,000, it's a lot. They have nearly 98% of their occupancies scored as well, and that's incredible for an agency that size. You kind of, okay, a department like Rich's can do it and get it all scored, since they don't have thousands and thousands and thousands of occupancies. But that's an example of, you've got a really big municipal agency and a medium-sized department like Rich's, and they can still both get it done if they commit to it. So this is right out of Rich's account. So take it away,
This
Rich.
and it's good that you I didn't even know you're going to use the screen time, but this screenshot, the satellite view is the heart of downtown Mount Dora. So again, we're only about 15,000 people with about 10 square miles. Mount Dora is known for a couple of really large. We have three extremely large festivals each year. We'll pack in a weekend easily 300,000 people into downtown over the course of a Friday evening and Saturday and Sunday when the festivals end. So one of the things that we have to address, and we've been successful in being able to staff these appropriately, is say we have to accommodate for the large crowds. So it's arts and crafts thing. So it's not wild people and a lot of alcohol and stuff like that. It's people buying arts and crafts. So a lot of the stuff that we see and we can correlate with these events in our risk assessment is especially being in Florida, how the weather causing syncope, trips and falls and stuff like that. But one of the things we've tried to stress to the city also, and we've had a couple of incidents, some small fires, luckily we've been able to extinguish quickly, is this downtown area is older historical buildings, early to mid 1900s they were built. This is the lifeblood of the city. This is our biggest tax revenue. This is what we're known for, and this is the identity of the city. How are we going to protect it? So doing this risk assessment and the OVAP scoring helped us get the tower truck in service, and we were able to justify why we were going to put it at Station 34 at the downtown station. Typically, we're your busier stations anyways. But even staffing these events when we've got it's more questions than necessarily negative comments from residents or city councils about why we upstaff the downtown area for events so much. It's not only to handle the call volume associated with the attendees, but also protection of these structures downtown. We have a lot of food vendors. The tents, as you can see, that middle of Downley Street is full of tents on both sides of the streets. You can't even see the street when we do aerial views of that, and all those neighboring streets also. So we've been able to say, hey, these are the risks that we have downtown in addition to the normal stuff, but we need to protect these downtown structures. Recently, we had a small dumpster fire with an exposure to one of these buildings. And luckily, we had crews on scene pretty quick, and we're able to put the dumpster fire out. But it awakened some of the politicians to say that, and to realize that we do need those resources downtown.
Excellent. And talking about resources, water supply.
So this has been kind of cool. I didn't at the time I didn't know that we were being creative, but our peer team, when they were here in December, just before Christmas, we had talked about our methodology with water supply. So we maintain GPS locations on all of the about 1,000 fire hydrants in the city. We're pretty fortunate to have a pretty decent water supply. You can see a couple of red ones with some older, and in the southeast part of town there, the greens and the yellows. That a little bit south of there is some older stuff. where we have some lower water supply. So first, we were able to use what we have in emergency reporting to gather all of our data. When we were blessed to not only be accredited this past year, but in 2019 we decreased our ISO score from a 3 to a 2, in large part because of the data that we had, the water supply, and how, again, we were able to measure where we were and then address those issues. Our water department is the one who obviously maintains the system, is say, here's where we are, here's our gaps in performance, where our lower water supply issues are. A couple of years ago, most of downtown there, again, a lot of that blue on Downley Street, did not have adequate water supply. So we were able to then say, here's where our gaps in performance are. We can identify the issues and give that to the water department so that they can appropriately budget and dedicate resources to improving those things. So our next focus there is a little bit below those green hydrants. There are some a little bit worse hydrants. But again, getting back to when the peer team was here, we were able to, we have a water department person dedicated specifically, most of his job, I should say, to just flowing and testing hydrants. With ISO and then the accreditation performance benchmarking, the city said, we just want to be able to flow test 100% of hydrants annually. We know ISO doesn't require an annual flow testing of hydrants, but again, we live in a city fortunate to say the residents want us, a fire inspector, to do annual inspections in 100% of occupancies each year. They want us to touch all of the fire hydrants and flow test them each year. And so we gave an iPad and a little Verizon MiFi to the water department guy, and he is the one that enters all of this stuff by himself. The water department goes and flow tests hydrants, does all the GPS locating. So for the fire department specifically, this is kind of a hands-off ordeal, other than our meetings that we have every month with the water department. So moving over for those accredited agencies or those going through, when we talk about category, so backing up to water supply in category 9, this was a big part of it. And then even documenting relationships, external agency relationships in category 10, we schedule monthly meetings with the water department where we say, hey, how have you done? Are there anything, maintenance issues that need to be addressed and stuff like that? So a lot of this hydrants module, we were able to give to the water department. The guy basically maintains it, and then we have monthly meetings on how he's doing, any issues that he needs to address or anything like that. So it's been a really good thing for us. And as a first-time agency going through this with our peer assessors who were, they're at the top of their game, to be impressed with that. That was one of our bragging points that I felt really good with about how we use the hydrant.
That's worth bragging about, because you're taking advantage in the business where they call it leveraging a relationship that you have with the water company, and it's a win for the entire community. And it's not this turf war where, okay, we're not going to share our data with the water company and vice versa. Give them access. You could just give them access to the hydrants module and go at it, and then you get a result like this, which is just fantastic. So it's not just data, it's building the relationships too. And so when you've got a good water supplier or good documentation of what your water supply is, now you've got the vehicles to connect to it. So talk a little bit about this here, Rich.
So our apparatus module, and I'm sure I'll hit it a little bit more once I start sharing my screen and going through some modules. We've used our apparatus module, I'm sure as most departments do. We enter some apparatus, some equipment, our PPE, and things like that. But the apparatus and equipment module, we started really hitting hard. Another recommendation that we got was to be even more granular with the documentation of apparatus and equipment maintenance. And then same thing in category 4 with financial planning. Emergency reporting has been really good, and we're going to utilize it even more for planning purposes. When they talk about wanting capital improvement plans and future planning and things like that, the apparatus module has been great for just entering maintenance and tracking maintenance costs and things that have gone wrong. For example, yesterday morning, one of our engines, engine 35, needed 2 tires replaced. The tread was low on them. And we're able to just quickly go in and pull a report and say, hey, how much have we spent on tires? Engine 35's seeing some unnecessary wear and tear, stuff like that. We've noticed that for example, putting the tower in service, it's a almost 20-year-old truck. you're able to then document maintenance costs and present that to city council to say, hey, we put the tower in service, for the past 19 years, annual maintenance has cost us this much because it's relatively been an unstaffed truck. This year, obviously, more wear and tear has been more maintenance. And then we can establish a methodology for when we're going to pull the trigger to make a new purchase of an apparatus. There's talking about capital improvement plans and purchasing. When you enter the in the data, when you're first setting up an apparatus, they talk about the in-service date, the expected replacement date, the actual cost to purchase. You can pull a quick report going years out and that's when for the peer team or just for financial planning within your own city, if you're not going through the accreditation process, it's a really quick, easy feature to be able to plan for the future like that. And that's your established methodology.
Excellent. And so we're getting all this data into the system, and Rich alluded to some of the ways he's getting the data out. But so now we're going to talk about incident performance, data in and data out.
So incident performance, and as Tom knows, that it's probably why I introduced myself back a couple of years ago to him at FDIC. I like hanging around some of the vendors and being able to pick their brains. The incident performance and data in, data out has been a big issue for us, especially being a smaller agency. We don't have an effective response force for most of the calls that we run. And just the political nature of the state of Florida, and more specifically Central Florida, we rely heavily on our neighboring jurisdictions. So we maintain automatic aid agreements with our neighboring jurisdictions. Getting their data in to emergency reporting was a feat with the CAD, and obviously being able to extrapolate what that data means and stuff. One of the fortunate things, again, we were able to have in December when the peer team came is we've all heard horror stories, I'm sure, and if anybody's lived through that, it's a nightmare. But we've heard horror stories of the peer team being on site, and during the site visit, they want some validation of data, or they want more data, and accreditation managers and accreditation teams of the fire department are up till 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning trying to get data. And one of the things I had to do a little bit, just because we had to go a few years back for accreditation, is dive and get the raw data from the CAD. That was nightmarish. Thank you to YouTube and Google for showing me how to work Excel pretty well. But once you can build out that system, and we got a new CAD system. Lake County did. There's 14 municipalities here. Lake County got a new CAD in last December. So with that, we were able to get other agencies' data automatically pushed to our ER account. So as you can see on this screen, that top group, the one that says Tavares, Florida, Engine 28, Battalion 28, those are not our units. Going into some of those other things, as you see on your screen, the 30s are Mount Dora's units. So the 20s are our neighboring jurisdiction, Tavares, and there's a couple Lake County units there. So what we've been able to do is they also use emergency reporting, and we're all on the same CAD. So being able to reach our arms out and get the data from those other agencies automatically pushed into emergency reporting has been a big deal. And now what would take, it literally took me a month, I think, to make some of my performance tables and get that raw data from the CAD. Now, again, it's just a click of a button, being able to pull incident types, turnout times, travel times, all that stuff is broken down. And to be able to be not only just get it automatically done, but it's cost and time savings. Again, it was at least a month of my time just putting together the performance tables. And now it can be done with just a quick click of a report. So there's some work that needs to be done and some apparatus mapping that needs to be done. Tom showed me, if anybody ever needs any of that, I'm always willing to help. Tom had showed me that when we were at FDIC one year about how to map outside agencies' apparatus. And once we've got that going, it's been really good for us.
Outstanding. Okay, so again, taking it home here, we're going to wrap it up on this slide, and then I'm going to pass it to you to share your screen and to go into the account, and you can take them through, more detail what you've covered, Rich. But then again,
Okay.
extracting this data out and then analysis. So this is straight from your account, in our analytics tool for NFPA 1710, and then of course adjusted for different standards of cover. But you can see here, and this is looking at just fire calls, right? So I'll let you talk a little bit here, Rich, and then we'll go into your account.
So as you can see, 2017 is when we purchased ER. We had uploaded data from 2015 and 16 from our old records management system. But 2017, you can see a big uptake in number of incidents. So we're just a growing area. Plus our automatic aid. We run a lot more into neighboring jurisdictions than they give us aid. And we understand that, part of our method, again, having a methodology for external agency relationships and our annual appraisals is we understand that we give a lot. One of our engines runs almost 25% of their calls into our neighboring jurisdiction, but our take for that is we need those neighboring jurisdictions for our effective response force, and there are some county fire stations that are closer units to city fire calls in that. So not only are we responsible for what our behavior and performance, but I did include our neighboring jurisdictions' response times in those. So if we have a first due engine that's a county engine to a subdivision, I have to account for their time. So that data has helped a lot also. So you'll see that uptick in spike in 2017 numbers. The 2020 numbers you can see are way down. I think this report here only includes reviewed reports. A couple of our neighboring jurisdictions had some hiccups with the CAD. So I have a lot of I'm working from home, ironically, but I have a lot of reports to review going back from January of this year. So that's why I think that data right there is, you see that large uptick. But we're able to look at our percentage of compliance. We know that 90th percentile compliance is a big thing for all of us, and be able to tell our constituents and our stakeholders of how we're doing. And again, we've been fortunate that the residents of Mount Dora, the business owners, they want good response times, they want well-trained firefighters, and they want good performance out of us. So we have to be accountable for being able to give them good data on a regular basis.
Excellent overview, Rich. Okay, so we both want to thank you for joining us today. And now let's jump into Rich's accounts. So I'm going to pass the screen over to you, Rich. Stand by. And it should be asking you to share your screen, and then we'll start seeing your screen.
All right, can you guys see? You're all good?
Perfect.
All right, so this is my home screen. If you're, everyone's an ER user, so you're all familiar with this. Before I dive too much in, I want to first of all thank Tom and the team. The 214 form that you guys have created for COVID is absolutely awesome. I'm glad. One good thing coming from COVID is that that's been a blessing to us, but anybody that might work out west with wildfires, or us in the southeast, specifically Florida with hurricanes and FEMA, and filling out those 214 forms by hand is a tedious nightmare. So any agencies in the area especially affected that have to do FEMA reporting and stuff like that, and submit those forms, this is a blessing to be able to just fill out your daily log, and most of the report be automatically updated. You save it to a folder is awesome. Not that I'm looking forward to hurricane season, especially with the COVID stuff, but that 214 form is going to be really good for us. So thank you, Tom.
You're welcome, Rich, and I will pass that thanks on to our development team, our report writing team. They knocked it out of the park. And if you are interested in learning more how to use that form, there is a YouTube video, a short 3-minute video on our YouTube channel. So just go there when you get a chance after you're done listening to Rich today.
So what I figure I'd do, if anybody has any questions, I can also address them. I'm just going to fly through our account real quick and provide a brief overview of kind of how we've set things up. There's a lot of stuff that we have performance improvement plans for, and one of our big recommendations was to get even more granular on a lot of these things. So I'll show you kind of what we do and some of our plans for improving that a little bit. So just going into the hydrants module, if you're all users, you're kind of familiar with this, but I talked about how we give this an iPad to our water department guy, and he just goes around with that and he fills in just all of this basic information. It's really user friendly. For him to take care of, the zone module was a big thing with our peer team of understanding everything, all service demands by our planning zones, or our demand zones, as some people call them. So we've stressed that to him. And then being able to just put in a quick flow test. You're just entering a couple numbers on an iPad, and then it'll obviously spit out a little report for you. So the hydrant module has been really good, and it's really user friendly, even to a guy who's not used to working with records management systems and stuff like that. He's just a guy out there flowing hydrants and fixing water mains and stuff like that, and it's been very user friendly to him. So moving on to our maintenance module a little bit. We have our, all of our apparatus in here with our work orders and stuff like that. I'm just going to go in here and show a little bit how we've set things up. This is a more recent stuff that we've done in the past several months with some cost. I talked about using capital improvement, plugging our data from emergency reporting into our capital improvement plan. So this can be done all at the outset of when you purchase a new piece of equipment, or it doesn't take too long to go and backfill a lot of that stuff. Especially being a smaller department, it took me just a couple minutes to do all this stuff. But being able to specifically put in for future planning the initial cost, the date that it was in service, and then the expected replacement date, can put out we can print a report of saying, for your plan for vehicle replacement. One of the things that I wanted to go back into, so the apparatus was a good thing. We track everything in there, our engines, our chief vehicles, and things like that. We use the equipment module. I'm going to go, again, testing ground ladders and PPE, not only just maintenance, but our annual tests, like our annual ladder testing. Oh, I want to go into the equipment, the maintenance history. So we put in our annual ladder tests for every piece of equipment, and to be as granular as possible with what things are, I was able to upload from the ladder testing company. I just upload each individual's ladder to a maintenance entry, and then I have my records for ladder testing for site visits for both accreditation and ISO. I've done that also. I have not done that with hose. We just do a bulk operation with testing hose. So we don't get individual. We have whether you do hose testing yourself or just have a company come in. I did not upload an individual test for each piece of hose, but going back to 2017 when we first got emergency reporting, I put in our annual hose tests, and more specifically with ISO, when they say, hey, I want you to pull your hose tests, we can easily document that and pull up a report. And then moving on to SCBA, I use the SCBA module for fit testing. So when we document fit testing for individuals, I just put that report in here also. So we use a third party for our fit testing to do our annual physicals. And then I can easily pull up the report for my annual fit test also for documentation of that. So we try to use this module as often as possible to be able to track things. Again, SCBA, hydrostatic testing, fit testing, annual flow testing for our air packs and stuff like that is all within this maintenance module. In the maintenance module, ER has a couple of things. They have a rig check for daily equipment checks, and they also have teamed up with Halligan for their truck check stuff. We've been a customer of Halligan for our daily truck checks for, I think, a little over a year. And once you build out that system in truck checks, and I think rig check is pretty similar, but we use the truck check module. My computer's a little bit slow, I'm sorry. So we use our truck check module. You're able to tie in your daily apparatus checks to your maintenance module. So when one of the guys is walking around with an iPad or a cell phone, or even when they go back to a computer desk to document their daily truck check, here's our history of just our regular daily. We have a regular daily DOT quick check, and then we have a more comprehensive once a week vehicle inventory and truck check. So as you can see today, everything on engine 35 looked okay. This is one from engine 35. A nut cover was missing on here, and I know like engine 34's tick is damaged and not there, so they have a replacement. So that got flagged and pinned there. So we're able to tie the fact that if the thermal imaging camera, when this was documented as being broken, when we built out the system, the thermal imaging camera was tagged in the maintenance module, and so it automatically creates a maintenance entry for that. And then the user, when they tag that, can send an email to the necessary party. So our person in charge of maintenance gets an email and then can follow up with that pretty easy. So we have a pretty good workflow built in with the maintenance modules also in doing the daily truck check. And then moving on to the occupancy module. This is one of the big things that's helped with category 2 and just our fire inspector. So I'm just going to go into, let's just say, City Hall here. I was looking at it a couple minutes ago. Oh, I've got to move my screen. I'm sorry. Just trying to click and drag this toolbar. It doesn't want to move for some reason. Here we go. So I'm just in an occupancy. This is our City Hall. In the occupancy module, we've just put in some basic information, the longitude and latitude for obviously planning purposes and pulling data and information. We've got our contact information, our building structure and stuff like that. One of the things that was big in category 2 also that we just started recently using, one of the guys just happened to notice it, didn't even know it was there, was the critical infrastructure tab. So in category 2 in the standards of cover, we have to document critical infrastructure. When I wrote the standards of cover, I just went through, again, being blessed to be part of a small town, we kind of went through each zone as we were writing the standards of cover and said, okay, what's in this zone? We have a fire station, a water treatment plant, anything like that, a public safety building or a power plant or something like that. So what's really great in here is when you build out the occupancy module, you can click whether something is critical infrastructure. So one thing, actually, maybe a improvement for emergency reporting. I don't see government buildings in here, Tom. So actually, we know just made City Hall. We consider that a critical infrastructure, so we just called it emergency services. But as you can see, here's our methodology for documenting critical infrastructure within the city. And because I documented the critical infrastructure here, and then I'm trying to look for it of what zone where the tab is. Somewhere in here is the zone that it's located in.
It's on the right side, occupancy zone.
Okay. So when I document those, I can correlate when I write my standards of cover where within each zone, within each planning zone, where my critical infrastructure is. So it makes things a lot easier, and you don't have to spend a lot of time, especially in larger jurisdictions, trying to think through or drive around what's considered critical infrastructure. So the inspections, as you can see here, we have planned out all the way to 2031. I'm not sure if that's just what the inspector did or if that's as far as emergency reporting goes, but here we've planned out and scheduled our annual fire inspections to be performed. So when the fire inspector goes and pulls her report, however far ahead she wants to go, if it's daily, weekly, monthly, or quarterly, to see what she has coming up, she can just easily pull up a report of what inspections are scheduled for what dates. And then down here, obviously in the bottom of the screen, you can see when last inspections were. So you can see that City Hall was last inspected on the 27th. There was a pre-plan update that Crews did last November. So all of that history is right here. So this has been really good, specifically with documenting inspections, but also trying to establish a methodology and some performance improvement of scheduling fire inspections and then scheduling them, so the fire inspector isn't bouncing all over town and wasting time driving. So we'll schedule them by the zone and then by street within the zone. So that's been a big help for us. The pre-fire plans tab, again, this is really user-friendly. It doesn't take too long to do, is to go in and just get, it's a pretty cookie cutter pre-fire plan module that's user-friendly and flows pretty well of how we're gonna document our pre-fire plans. in the Files tab, we can upload files. So if we have back from several years ago hand-drawn, before a lot of these records management systems existed, hand-drawn pre-fire plans. And then what we've started doing is we put just a small cheap iPad in the truck, and so we'll actually take pictures of the sides of the building, just to show where we are. Our next phase of doing the pre-fire planning is we have almost 100% into emergency reporting. Now, with the implementation of the new CAD, now we can get those pre-fire plans. We're not there yet, but we'll be able to put the pre-fire plans into the CAD, so that all of this information will just be pulled up into the CAD for the guys in the truck. So you're not having to dig through the occupancy module in your command truck, or the first due trucks being able to take care of that. The last big thing of the occupancy module that's been a big thing is the OVAP score. Like I talked about earlier, this is a big part of assessing specifically fire risks within the community. So this is just a quick checklist of criteria that you fill out, and then it spits out a risk score for you. What also part of the hydrants module does is you enter in the occupancy where it is, and this connects. The occupancy and the hydrant module connect, so we can talk about the available fire flow and then the needed fire flows. So again, in category 2 and in the standards of cover, when you're documenting how well you're able to respond to risks, when you're assessing your response posture or anything like that, you can look at your available fire flow, you can look at your needed fire flow. And again, anybody that's also familiar with ISO is, water supply is, I think, 40% of your ISO score. So we're able to use the hydrant and the occupancy module to immediately ping those any reports. We'll pull a report for available water flows, and emergency reporting will make a category basically that says like sufficient or insufficient water supply. So those occupancies that are pinged as insufficient, obviously we can't fix everything, and it's costly to replace fire hydrants and obviously water supply systems, but at least we have a methodology to give to the water department to say, here's where we've identified we have water supply issues. And then the water department can take it from there in their capital improvement planning for identifying areas that need a better water supply system moving forward. So that kind of marches out our methodology with assessing fire risks and then specifically moving back to fire hydrants and water supply. The reports module, I'm not going to dab too much in there, like pulling up specific reports. There's a ton of reports, more than anybody I'm sure has ever played around with, but I just wanted to share a few that I used specifically in making my standards of cover that were pretty helpful. So these are just mostly fire ones and stuff, but these reports are really easy to pull if you're measuring. Again, we're a smaller jurisdiction. We don't have fire service casualties. We don't have civilian or firefighter stuff. So I'm able to pull stuff, based on, as you can see here, from 2017 to 2019, pretty small reports. But even for larger jurisdictions, you can get really granular on monthly, weekly, quarterly. Anybody that's pulled reports, we can do that stuff. So again, this is losses for acres burned. Again, we don't have a big wildland fire interface, but one of the things we realized during the interaction with after we had uploaded our documents to the peer team is we said, we don't, wildland firefighting was not a category that we wrote to. So we did not have to write to it, but at the same time, the peer team wanted data on verification and validation that we don't have that. So during on Sunday of the drive around, we drove around and there are some wildland interfaces. It's a lot of unincorporated areas, but they wanted some data on, do you have any losses or anything like that? So this is basically saying that, it validated the fact that we don't have large wildland interfaces and a lot of damage or anything like that. If we did have a lot of acres burned or property damage, then that could be something that we take to the stakeholders and again in planning and with city council and say, hey, we've noticed an uptick in wildland type fires or brush fires, and then request further staffing or apparatus or resources, even if we needed to get purchase wildland gear for the firefighters. So this is how we plan and have used it and planned on using it. So again, there's some reports on breakdown of cause of ignition that help us to be able to identify what it is starting the fires, and then our plan for moving forward on how we're going to get into prevent those. So the fire detector performance report was actually kind of interesting to me. I never had really thought of it until our interaction with the peer team and the document upload, but I found this report in emergency reporting, and it kind of gave me an insight as to not necessarily performance while we're on scene, but more how accurately and how effectively are our officers documenting and doing the NIFRS reports. So as you can see, my first red flag was like for these detector defectiveness not recorded, or the detector operation. So what I was able to do from pulling this report is I said, if a detector was not recorded as being present or something like that, you see all these not recorded for all of these incidents. So I was able to go back and actually have some training for our company officers and say, when we're putting in NIFRS reports, and say, hey, that we need to document these more accurately. Obviously it wasn't a big thing, or if it was an undetermined or something like that. So now we're able to more accurately document from this report. We're able to better document some detector operations. And then if we were, again, we don't have many fires in the city, but if we were able to have more fires, or going to have a super focused smoke detector program, we've been able to start with this, have our company officers document better, and then as anything happens, we can monitor for any red flags if we see anything in a certain area, or people's performance with stuff. So this report wasn't too impactful with our again, with our performance and operations on scene, but I was able to go back and have some training for our company officers and proper documentation. And again, there's just some fire service exposures and injuries report by year. Again, we're a small department. We don't have many injuries or exposures on there. So those are relatively, almost no numbers, but still easy to pull up based on, regardless of your jurisdiction size. These are really easy to document for your peer teams of how you're assessing your performance. And then I think that's it. In the administration module, if anybody, I talked about earlier, if you have some issues with data, the apparatus mapping for us was a big deal with our neighboring jurisdictions. So we have, almost 40 something stations in the entire county. We run with a core group of engines and battalion chiefs from neighboring jurisdictions, but being able to get their data effectively into emergency reporting was a big deal for us. So if you need help with that or anything, obviously my contact information is there, so feel free to reach out. But other than that, Tom, I think that wraps up my stuff.
Outstanding, Rich. Thank you very much. And go back real quick to apparatus mapping. We'll just want to mention something there.
Yeah.
The key takeaway Rich is mentioning on apparatus mapping is that if the CAD is sending that data, that's the second column there. So that's what's coming into the system. And if it's an exact match to an apparatus you've created, so like engine 34 and engine 34, it's a 1-for-1. That typically wouldn't need to be mapped because it sees it as the same thing in ER. The purpose of mapping is that if the CAD calls it something else like it does there, LCFD BAT 90 or BAT 20, they can, Rich has created BAT 20 in his system. So anytime the CAD interface, our parser sees LCFD BAT 20 coming from the CAD, it knows to populate the data, the times for BAT 20 in Mount Dora's account. So that's that CAD apparatus mapping concept here. It's basically translating what the CAD's sending over and making sure it applies to what you've built in the apparatus list in your account. But hey, Rich, that was an excellent presentation. We'll open it up for questions if there are any. And as people are thinking if they want to ask a question, as I was listening to you, I was jotting down some notes, and it shows to me that you've got a commitment at Mount Dora that you committed to a mission to become accredited. And of course, you also improved your ISO score as a result as well. But you stayed focused on that because it is hard with our competing missions in the fire service, competing purposes and expectations from our communities to stay focused. But I heard you say you had expectations from the community that were high, so that helped support the mission. You're able to collect the data, and as you're collecting the data with a system like emergency reporting, that you set some examples of how you improved your QA, especially on the detector performance report, making sure that non-required fields are still being entered. So you had that QA process in place. You organized the data. So not only just in an RMS, but I saw your folder structure because it is a lot to manage, but you kept it well organized. I think that's key to success. Extracting the data, analyzing the data, being able to communicate it to the peer assessors effectively and answer their questions so you're not up at 3 or 4 in the morning trying to figure this out. And produce that data. You can usually do it pretty quickly with our system. And then once the success of what had happened, of you becoming accredited, improving your ISO score, which was a bonus, now you've got the follow through to keep it going and keep that organizational inertia, positive, that momentum going forward. And it sounds like you guys are well on your way. So I'm just grateful to you for spending time today sharing your expertise as an accreditation manager and your recent experience going through that process and being able to put yourself out there as a resource for others. So thank you, Rich, for that. And Sean, you're very welcome. Thank you for that kind comment. And any other questions? Any questions that Rich or I can answer? Okay, well, this will be posted to YouTube as a recording, most likely later today. Worst case will be tomorrow. And then we've got another webinar coming up, our 20th in the series next week. And then we'll have a bonus one to show you some more things on data management with our business intelligence tool. And I just have one phrase to say to you: 90th percentile report. So stay tuned for more good things there. And Rich, I'll be in touch with you here shortly, but thank you for sharing everything with us today. We're sure appreciative of that.
Thank you, Tom, and thanks for everybody for listening in.